Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to an unexpectedly early hour. Thank you for your patience. Today we had a very productive European Council with 3 central questions, in addition to a few others, but 3 were in the foreground, as you know from the invitation and the agenda. First of all, the question was how we strengthen the competitiveness of the European economy. Secondly, how can we help Ukraine over the next 2 to 3 years? And thirdly, how do we strengthen our own defensive capabilities as Europeans? On the question of competitiveness, we agreed today that we have to work very intensively and very quickly to further rebuild the bureaucracies in Europe in order to make our economy more competitive. You know my letter that I wrote to the President of the European Council in copy of the President of the European Commission. In the meantime, 21 member states have signed this letter. He was part of the debate today, and that's exactly what I wanted to talk about. We talked very intensively about some concrete steps that we are now taking, because we all agree that in order to support new growth in Europe, we have to understand and concentrate on key aspects. One of them is that the European Union will continue to work consistently on a bureaucratic recovery. The Commission itself has set some ambitious goals. In total, it has set itself a bureaucratic relief of just under 40 billion euros. It has proposed that it has just under 9 billion euros so far, and it has implemented just 1.5 billion euros so far. So you can see that there is still a lot to do with these figures. So that's not enough so far. We need a real cultural change in the European Union for this, and this means that we really reduce excessive bureaucratic burdens and fundamentally simplify the community in all areas and implement new proposals for the regulation of the greatest reticence. Secondly, we really have to strengthen the European common market. There are still far too many hurdles in this common market. An interesting number is the International Monetary Fund. It has investigated that the hurdles in the European common market, which we still have, currently correspond to tariffs of about 45% on goods and about 110% on services. You can see on these 2 figures alone what potential is still to be raised here. The Commission has even referred to the highest hurdles as the terrible 10. These hurdles have to go, and this is possible in the common market. Above all, it is possible through one instrument that the Commission has now proposed that we support, namely, to introduce a 28th regulation that applies only to the European Union, in addition to all other existing national regulations. This should now apply in particular to the entire startup industry, so that we then get a uniform European regulation without having to change the existing nationals, and you can then opt for the 28th regulation. And with all these reliefs for our economy, the Commission will have my full support for this. At the same time, I would like to urge the European Parliament, as it did this morning, to support and participate in this constructive cooperation with the Commission and the Council. This applies, for example, to Omnibus 1, which was previously rejected in the European Parliament yesterday. This is a difficult step back from yesterday, but it can be corrected, and the European Parliament should also correct it. The intention for this has already been formulated. However, I would also like to refer to 2 good news. One is that we agreed on my proposal to hold an extraordinary European Council on February 12th. This will deal exclusively with the competitiveness of the European industry. No other topic, just this. Mario Draghi and Enrico Letta are also invited to do this, who wrote the 2 reports for the Commission on Competitiveness and the completion of the Binnenmarkt. And the second thing that made me very happy today, we agreed on this. The Mercosur agreement can now be implemented. It still has to go through the European Parliament, but the heads of state and government have authorized the permanent representatives to sign the final version on December 19th. So the way is clear for Mercosur. The European Parliament still has to ratify, but I assume that this will also take place in the near future, so that we can give the signal to the South American states at the end of the year that Mercosur can come into force. The second big topic today was the support of Ukraine. Putin continues his attack war against Ukraine. Today again, corresponding actions, corresponding bombings in Ukraine. He withdraws from serious negotiations. We have to draw consequences from this as Europeans and discuss this with our partners beyond the Atlantic. I am very happy that we have unanimously passed the 19th sanction package today. Europe has already reduced its energy relations with Russia by more than 80%. We will now end all energy relations from Russia until the end of 2027. This has been decided with this sanction package. And I would like to expressly welcome that the American government has announced substantial new sanctions against the Russian energy sector on its part. This is an important message to Putin, that we increase the pressure on Russia from both sides of the Atlantic. Why do we increase the pressure? Quite simply because we want to show Putin that a continuation of his attack war is pointless. We increase the pressure to create negotiability on the Russian side, so that the weapons finally remain silent in Ukraine. Ukraine needs a reliable perspective, especially in military equipment. We Europeans have to give this signal of strength now. As you know, I made a proposal here for the end of September. The Commission has been asked today to work out all possible options and to propose them to us until the next European Council, which will take place on December 18th. Finally, the third important topic today was the strengthening of our own European defense capabilities. We want to simplify the European defense industries, standardize and scale. In order to really enable a real scaling, we also have to simplify our rules in the defense sector. I therefore applied for an agreement on the defense omnibus until the end of the year. The German federal government has a clear and unambiguous stance on this. We expect this from the entire European Union. The establishment of capability goals remains the task of NATO. To fulfill these goals is the task of the member states of NATO. There will also be no duplication of structures or tasks between the European Union and NATO. But the European Union can and will make its contribution to the strengthening of Europe's defense capabilities where it has its own competences. For example, this applies specifically to the acceleration of planning and approval procedures for military facilities and manufacturing facilities. I have committed myself to setting the target date for the end of the year again on a European Council in order to decide on the important defense omnibus. As you can see, we have had an intensive discussion. I would like to conclude by saying that we also discussed monetary policy issues with the President of the Eurogroup and the President of the European Central Bank. We also discussed the digital euro very intensively. We hope that the digital euro will be introduced as soon as possible and that the European Parliament agrees. Then there can be a corresponding approval of the Council. So we are on the right track, but there is still a lot to do. That is why I am very happy that we will not only meet again this year, but are well prepared for the next year on February 12th. Incidentally, for all those who are interested, it is almost a woman's night in Germany. So we will meet again in Brussels, or rather, near Brussels, not here in the Council, but in another building, on the invitation of the Belgian government, to talk about these issues together. I am very satisfied with the day today, with the course of the discussion and also with the decisions that we have made. There is a great willingness, and it has been carried out completely without any deviation from all. Now really, to put the issue of competitiveness in the focus of the European industry. And we continue to work together on this task. Thank you very much.